I want to close out by reading something at the end of your book, and get you to, in the closing couple minutes that we have, to talk a little further. You write, "It is impossible to understand activist and former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick's decision to protest police violence by kneeling during the national anthem and the uproar that followed without first understanding the history of Black protests during World War II." I thought that was a nice linkage between the past and the present. Close us out by telling us more about that.
So I hope one thing that comes through clearly in this story about World War II is that patriotism and dissent have always gone hand in hand for Black Americans. And I've been thinking a lot about the meaning of the American flag as I was writing this book. That examples from the book are there was a race riot in Beaumont, Texas in 1943. A group of whites went into the Black community and they burned down several buildings, including a radio store that was one of the sort of key businesses in town. One of the images that gets circulated after that is an American flag that's been burned because white townspeople in Beaumont burned this building to the ground. And so I kept looking at that picture and thinking about what it meant for white townspeople in Texas to burn the American flag alongside this Black community. Later in the war, after Normandy and the D-Day invasion, Black troops recounted seeing their white counterparts, their fellow white troops, raise the Confederate flag, either alongside or instead of the Stars and Stripes when they would take over these towns in France. And they just had to shake their head because they recognized what the Confederate flag meant. It meant slavery, and it meant a return to the kind of racial hierarchies that they were trying to fight against, and trying to leave behind. What shows up in Black newspaper after that was an editorialist asking, what's wrong with the Stars and Stripes that you would have these white troops flying the Confederate flag instead? And so I think it's important for us today to understand that for Black Americans, the American flag has always been a very, very complicated symbol, and that World War II helps to give us a perspective on what it meant for these Black veterans to both fight for the flag, but also fight to make the flag worth something to fight for. That patriotism and dissent were always intertwined for these Black veterans. And if we can't understand that history, if we can't reckon honestly with that history of World War II, we really have no chance of understanding the kind of America we're living in today.